We'll start there.
Great.
Good, man. Good. So we got Sonny here from Valiant Armory today for an interview. I kind of want to go over, just to start off, Sonny, tell me just a little bit about yourself and like what your week is like at the shop, and what do you got going on?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm pretty busy. I work basically 7 days a week, much to my wife's chagrin. But right now, Zach and I are pretty backed up on our queue, and so in an effort to try to catch up ground on that, all the while still developing new projects.
Right.
I'm pretty much here every day.
Yeah.
I took off Christmas, and I took off one other day since Christmas, and that's it. Other than that, I'm at the shop every day.
Then you guys are doing, obviously you're doing swords, but you guys are also doing scabbards too. I see a bunch of scabbards behind you that you all are working on.
Yeah, obviously everything we make comes with a scabbard, and we make scabbards weekly. And Zachary is 30 something now, I guess 30, 31 almost. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. He's 30. Anyway, he's got two babies, and the oldest one turns 2 this month, and then the youngest one turns 1 weekly. And so in an effort to let him increase his cash flow for these added expenses, we take in custom scabbard work for people who may have an Albion or a Gus Trim or some other maker sword, and Zach will do those kind of on the side. But we roll them through like the cores with our regular scabbards, and then he does the finish up like in the off hours. So.
Nice.
But it's a way to kind of hone the skills a little bit, because often those are different types of scabbards than what we would normally do. And then it also allows for us to see other people's work, which it's valuable, It's not that you're wanting to copy them or any of that, but you want to see what other people are doing out there. I don't spend a lot of time looking at other makers' websites or any of that. Customers will often ask me, do you make a blade, or can you make a blade like X maker's model?
Sure.
And I'm like, I don't know. Let me go look and see what that model is, because I don't know by name, but I can go and look up a lot of that. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I have something either comparable, or there's something that's coming down the pipe, or yeah, we can make it. We do customs. I've cut back on the customs quite a bit. Earlier, we started out early on offering a lot of custom options because it was a way to get people in. I mean, you're trying to get business.
Sure.
And right now we're so backed up that it's every single custom item adds a little bit of time that stacks up on itself. And, in fairness to all my current customers who are waiting, and, we're working hard on their stuff, but we want to get theirs out as quickly as possible without sacrificing the quality. And so that it's like future time saving is if I stop allowing so many customizations on orders placed now, then once we kind of work through the cycle, the backlog, it'll make it that much easier. So we feel like we'll pick up speed incrementally as we get nearer the end of the queue, because honestly, I would love for us just to be able to have all of my models ready to go.
Right.
Say,
like made
sword, the blade's made, the fittings are clean, the handle's made, it's even wrapped in leather, just not dyed. The scabbard's made, but not dyed. The belt's made, but not dyed. And then say, okay, this sword's in stock. Choose your colors, choose whether you want the fittings antique grade or blackened, or if you just want them the standard satin. Then we'll put your sword together and ship it by Friday or something like that. I just think it would be in the grand schemes a little bit easier. Sometimes I feel we gave too many choices. Some people, the more choices you give them, they feel an obligation to select one of those.
Yeah, and then they have so
whether or
many
not they
questions
use it.
about those different about those different options too. And then they just end up not wanting to they're like, I don't know what to choose now, rather than like making it so simple and like a couple options, right?
Well, I learned that. Well, I didn't learn. I used to have an engraving store years and years ago. I did custom engraving and custom different types of gifts. We could do sublimation and all this. And for fonts, I thought it'd be nice if I had a large selection of fonts. And I put out this massive list. And I quickly learned that everybody wants to see what it is they want to have engraved in that particular font. So you would spend an hour with a person
Right.
trying to choose a font. It took me about a month of that. And then I was like, all right, we're done. I pared it down to 10 fonts.
This is
This
what you
is
get.
what we have.
Yeah, this is what we have.
Choose these,
Yeah.
you know, and it sped up the whole process. And it just didn't matter what kind of custom options you get somebody. It adds time, slows the process, and it actually makes it more difficult for people. And the simpler the transaction was for all those custom items, actually, the more we sold.
Yeah.
And so, as an individual who likes to craft items himself, though, I like all these toys. So I always assume that people want to have the same options that I want. And so that's one of the reasons why the swords, when we started, had so many choices. You know?
Yeah.
You could customize all kinds of stuff. You could swap fittings and add a grip ring, add lockets, add different types of etching.
Sure.
I would customize blades, all kinds of things, you know, because when you're dealing with a customer one-on-one, you want to make them happy. You know, you're like, okay, what can I do? Kind of
Absolutely.
thing. And it always ends up making them happy in the end, but it slows down the entire process, which slows the queue, which, you know, you get behind. So,
yeah.
So far, most of my customers have been pretty understanding. We've strived to hit target dates. If somebody is buying something, we have a lot of people who will buy a sword for a wedding, or for a birthday, or I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Raising a Modern Day Knight.
No, I haven't heard of that before.
There's I guess it's a book that people, and they follow this guideline. It's to kind of teach their young men, you know, to be chivalrous.
Sure. So it's like a knighthood type of like an order, or like a rite of passage.
I don't know that it's an actual order. It's based around certain religious values, which obviously, if you go through the Knights Templars, obviously that makes a lot of sense. But as these kids, either some at 16, some at 18, reach what they consider manhood, part of their little ceremony is they would present them with a sword. And so I have made tons of swords to that.
Yeah.
Just in general. And as we have gone through all of that, that's where a lot of customizations come in. People wanting specific things geared towards that. So anyway.
All right. So let's go to simplicity here. Like, how did you get into the sword business?
Well, early on, I actually had retail stores in the mall, in the various malls in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. At one point in time, I had up to, I think, 5 at once. I think it was 5. Anyway, we sold pocket knives and swords and several other items that we thought we could cater towards that particular type of clientele. Some of the stores had cigars, and we sold chess sets and flasks and Zippo lighters, that kind of stuff. And we carried a line from a company called ProCut out of San Diego, and I think it was San Diego. And they had a line called Valiant Armory.
Okay.
And we went to a trade show in Las Vegas, the SHOT Show, and in conjunction with that, they used to have the sword show. And went there, found the line, started carrying it. We sold a ton of it. I mean, but you got a picture. You're in the mall. You go into the mall store, and then there's swords on the wall, and people are like, "Oh, can I see that sword?" So they pick it up. They're like, "Yeah, this is good and heavy. This is what I like. This is a real sword." And I got into that business basically from pocket knives. So I wanted to sell pocket knives and those types of items, and the swords were just a cursory add-on. But we moved quite a bit of those, and I think it was November of 2006. I called to place an order for Christmas to stock up on them, and unfortunately, I was told that the owner had passed away, and that the whole company was going out of business. And so everything was on sale. I bought quite a bit, and I got to thinking that, after this Christmas, one of my main items is going to be unavailable. So I thought about it for a little bit, and I called them up and I said, what would it take to keep the Valiant Armory line going?
Yeah.
And they're like, simple, buy the rest of our inventory, give us $5,000 for the name, and it's all yours. We'll give you the source. All of these swords were made in the Philippines.
Okay.
The guy that they connected me with, I think he told me different things, different times. So who knows? He used to tell me they were hand forged, and then he told me that they were stock removal. I really don't know how they were made. They were overly heavy. I think the average one-handed sword from them was about 4 to 5 pounds. They were nice.
So is the weight of 2 swords put together?
Pretty much, yeah.
Or more, 2.5.
Anyway, so we got in all these swords, and I was like, this is going to be great. I'll be able to sell these in my shops, and then I'll be able to wholesale them. So I started calling around to different vendors. I had their customer list they gave me, and hey, I'm the new owner. I'm going to be doing the Valiant Armory line, and I had a rude awakening. That's when most of those same people, different, potential customers, I thought, and they'd advised me that the quality of the Philippine-made Valiant Armory swords were not up to snuff. That they weren't interested, and I was pretty surprised. And so I started doing research to try to figure out, well, what is a good sword?
Right. So
I found there was a couple of sword forums back then. Actually, there were 3. It was Net Sword that I'd seen, but they were kind of fading out. Sword Forum International was still pretty active, and My Armoury were the main ones. Actually, there was a 4th because I guess Sword Buyer's Guide was going back then too.
They've been around forever, haven't they?
Yeah. I mean, I like Sword Buyer's Guide, and they brought a lot of people into the sword world, but I think they're more of a marketing thing for Paul Southern. So, but I mean, whatever works. I think he's pretty fair, or he's tried to be for the most part. But there's definitely an agenda there. It's just your customers' store, but hey, it's free market, right? But anyway, so in kind of doing research, I asked some questions. I got a lot of flame on the forums for those SLOs, they call them, sword-like objects, sharpened crowbars. I heard all the stuff, and so I looked around, and obviously, if you want to start trying to find out who makes good swords, at least back then, Angus Trim's name came up, and back then he was doing a lot of work with Christian Fletcher, and Christian had beautiful designs. Christian still, I mean, he must have a 2-year backlog, maybe more. He does fantastic work, and obviously Gus has been known for years for his blade geometries, his balance, the harmonics, all of the technical terminology and physical properties of sword making. So he was another guy, John Lundamo. I guess it was Odin's forge before he was Longship. It was something Odin's, I remember that. So I looked at a lot of what they were doing. And then there were some other makers, obviously. But I contacted, first it was Christian Fletcher, and talked about, helping me redesign, or make some better model swords. And he had told me that he was basically a cut. He didn't make swords, and he made hilt components and such. He says, you're going to need to find somebody who will actually design blades. And he
Right.
said, I can, design scabbards and grips and fittings, the hilt components and the like. And he suggested that I call up Gus because he was working with him, but he couldn't speak for him. So I made my first phone call to Gus. I talked to him for a while, and one thing led to another, and we introduced several models that were a collaboration of Christian Fletcher and Gus Trim. And that was our first signature swords. Instead of the Philippines, where I wasn't certain that I could get a blade made that would fit what Gus had in mind and what Christian wanted. So I did a lot of research, and I found actually a really small forge in Ningbo, China. And most of the swords coming out of China are from this one town, city, or whatever, Longquan or Longshuan. I don't even know how they say it.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of forges over there, and there are very few that aren't in that area.
Wow.
And so I found one outside of Ningbo, and then I think Paul Chen that worked with CAS Siberia. I think he's Dalian, which is another place. But I found this one, and I had them make me up some prototype blades, and they were pretty good.
Yeah.
I did another little line that I had Fred Chin make for me, the practical cutting line for Gus, and those were also really well made. And just getting those blades in, actually to wind it back, getting the prototypes from Gus and Christian was really eye-opening. And it was remarkable to see the difference. And I have to be honest with you, it turned me off of the Philippine blades faster than you can turn around.
Well, I mean, the engineering of that too is it's like night and day, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I sold those Philippine-made swords for maybe another year, maybe 2 years. I can't ever recall. But it was really hard to try to promote and to sell something that, to be honest, I was embarrassed.
Sure.
You're wanting to build a level of quality, and I thought I had taken the steps with our first models that we developed with Gus and Christian, and those Philippine swords were awful. I still have a few just laying around. It's crazy. I look at those every now and then. I'll go into the back into the storage, and oh wow. Even I'm 2 shops removed, but I used to work at an airport hangar. A buddy of mine had a huge helicopter hangar, and they sold helicopter parts for I think the Bell 47.
Okay.
You ever seen MASH?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, when that TV show starts, there's those helicopters flying in with a big glass. That's a Bell 47.
Okay, so I got a good visual of it now. Yeah, I watched MASH with my family when I was growing up. So, yeah.
Anyway, so my shop was in there, and then when I finally moved out, I still had a bunch of this stuff. I threw it in a big pile. I took a photo of it, put it on Facebook. I said, free, must pick up. Just gave a bunch of those away, and I got blown up. So many people wanted those free cheap swords. I said, it's a first come, first serve. One caveat, you must take it all. We're not picking and choosing.
Yeah,
you
you're
take
not
it
scrapping
all.
through
Anything
it.
you don't want, there's a dumpster on the way out. Just I was done with it. But anyway, so we improved our line quite a bit. I personally feel we kind of reinvented the mid-level European sword market, because there was cheap and then there was much nicer. You know what I
There's nothing
mean?
really in the middle, right?
Not the way we did it.
Yeah.
Not the leather work and the craftsmanship that we put into it. And obviously, when we started, we weren't as good as we would be a year later, and then another year later. And I have actually stumbled across some of our first, we call them the signature line, our signature swords. And even those kind of make me cringe. As you evolve and you get better,
Sure.
you look at past works and you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really did that, and I was proud of it at the time. And it's just like the level of craftsmanship that go into our blades now. It's night and day.
That's such a good
parallel.
parallel. That's such a good parallel for I mean, we document all of our training, like all of our martial arts training and everything too. And like back then we're like, man, I think I'm pretty good. And then you look at it now, and that was only like 4 years ago. You're like, I thought it was good. Like it's a really cool contrast in seeing the progress, like especially like even a couple years back into that. So what year are we talking here with Valiant, where you started sourcing in these small shops like around China and like started going into that forge? Like what year?
Oh no, we started right out of the chute, I guess. I think we had our first prototypes in 2007.
Okay.
I even took them to the blade show. I was still doing the Philippine thing, so I went there and set up, and that was another time when it was really obvious no one had any interest in the Philippine made stuff, at least those particular ones. I've seen some better stuff made out of the Philippines, so I don't want to completely run that down. It's just what we were doing, what the brand as it was that I bought.
Yeah, it could have been anywhere that you were just not getting the quality that you were demanding for what you wanted to do with your company. That's all.
Oh, absolutely. And as we go further through, I guess, as we work through Valiant Armory, a similar thing happened with the Chinese blades as we went forward. As you try to improve things early on that you either didn't notice or you were okay with. As you progress, you're like, no, I'm not real satisfied with this.
Yeah.
And so you want to improve on it. And we had gotten to the point where we were doing an awful lot of work individually on a piece by piece basis of each and every blade that we were bringing in from overseas. Just little things, the finish, the edge, the way the tang was done, just everything. I mean, it started with the scabbards and the grips, because they made the wood cores for us. And, I kept looking at all these and I was like, there is a level of inconsistency here. The only thing consistent is the inconsistency. And it was frustrating. So that's the first thing we started to do. All right, I'm going to make all of these. So we bring all of these swords in. We fill the wood grips off, chunk, or we'd use them to hammer on pommels and stuff. It's kind of a buffer. And so then our handles improved dramatically.
Right.
Because that's the one thing that I couldn't do, is I couldn't make something like they were. I had to find a shape, profile, a size, and I needed to be able to hit that every time.
Yep.
And then the same thing happened with the scabbard cores. And so, I mean, you can look behind me. We make very consistent, smooth, properly shaped and sized scabbard cores. we make them all in-house now.
Right.
But all of that takes time.
Of course.
And then when you're improving all of this, you always look at the weakest link. And so then it was doing a lot of work on, the fittings, because when you have a certain geometry on a guard and it's being mass produced and mass cleaned, some of the details get washed away. The crispness of a line will get kind of rubbed down, whether they're using a polishing wheel or however they're cleaning it. So then I started having them not clean the caskets. Just send them to me, I'll clean them.
Yeah.
Every one of these steps to improve the process increase the amount of time it would take to produce the order.
Of course.
And at that time, I hadn't even increased any prices. It was
you were increasing prices even though you were like doubling, you were like fixing the work that you were having shipped in.
Yeah, it was incredibly stupid on my part. I mean, it's not really sound business logic there.
But you're on a mission.
My wife is the one that says, "This is crazy. You're increasing your labor. You're working longer hours, and it seems like we're making less money." And so we finally started, a little bit of a price increase, and it's crept up incrementally as we've made changes. I'll say that, what used to be I guess like a suggested retail for our signature stuff has gone up probably 50% since then.
Sure.
Probably should have gone up more on those import blades, but as I guess my tolerance for lack of quality decreased, that's when I decided I really needed to. I mean, I had already started making blades somewhat. And then at the time, Stephen Lockwood Stephen worked for me for the first, I guess 10 years of Valiant Armory.
Okay.
He had been making blades, and then he would make blades for some of the custom things we were doing. And I was toying around with making blades. And as it gradually increased and we were making more, at the same time, the quality of the blades I was bringing in were decreasing. And it had got to the point where every other shipment, I would get a shipment in and it would be lacking in something. So I would lodge my complaints. And so they're like, okay, we'll take care of it. The next shipment would come in and it would be better. It would have addressed my issues.
Sure.
But then there would be something else. And I was like, well, okay, we fixed this, but now we're this stuff. And so next shipment in. So it was like every other one. It would be an improvement, and then the quality would drop. And I had already been contemplating doing a domestic line. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back for me was I got in one of the bad shipments. I did my complaint thing. The next shipment was worse.
Oh, geez. That would have been it, man.
I was like, I paid all this because, big companies that have stuff made like Hanway, they've got people over there.
Yeah.
That can quality control and check all this. I'm basically a two-man shop back then. I can't afford to put somebody over there to check all of this stuff out ahead of time. So, you just lodge your complaints via email, via WeChat, or whatever it was we were using at the time, and an occasional phone call.
Okay.
And so I was assured that this next shipment, all problems were solved, and that it had taken control and my go-between. And I got in another shipment, and it was even worse.
Wow.
And that was it.
Yep.
I determined I would never again import another blade. I really stepped up my my domestic blade building, and basically transitioned. I took all of the import stuff off the website and just started only offering the Craftsman line. And I had a lot of people upset with me because obviously the Craftsman line, I'm spending way more hours. You know, we talked about just a little bit ago about not increasing prices as I increased my labor.
Yeah.
I really did a breakdown of the amount of time that I was putting into each individual sword and all of the fittings, because we were making all the fittings. Here we were doing them where we would make waxes, and I had found a local foundry that could pour the fittings here locally. So we were doing everything in the States then.
Right.
And the amount of time to clean up those castings and all of it, I determined that if I was going to make swords like this, I needed to get compensated for it, or I was going to go out of business.
Sure.
So it was one of those things, the price need to increase dramatically, or there was going to be no more Valiant Armory. So I did that, and we were doing okay, but it's hard to sell. It's a lot harder to sell a more expensive sword than a $500 import blade. So it was kind of a struggle. And, you know, I had a lot of people who were really upset that the lower price line had gone away. And so, you know, I talked to some people. I know a lot of people in the sword business. And a buddy of mine who I've known for years, you know, I had just kind of telling him what was going on. And so one little thing led to another, and he kind of came on as a partner.
Cool.
And, you know, we decided to bring back the import line one more time. And, you know, he was glad to hear from us. He'd never thought he'd hear from us again. And this is my bad. I really thought, because I had gotten such quality from him.
Yeah.
I really thought if I gave this guy another shot, that it would work out. And we brought in a bunch of blades, and the quality was just as bad. And let me clarify something, because I don't want people to think that I've been shipping bad blades over the last 3 or 4 years.
Sure.
When I say the quality was bad, I mean that like 1 out of 3 blades were unusable.
Okay.
That, you know, proportionally weight-wise or something was so off that I literally threw it away.
Yeah.
And then I would have another, you know, third, 1 out of 3. This is a good blade. This is what our target was, or at least close enough where I could do a little work on it. And then another third was, all right, I can spend some time, I can do some work on this blade, and I can make it or bring it up to the level that I want.
However,
So,
that's the same pattern.
I don't want people to think that, oh wow, if I bought a Valiant Armory with an import blade over the last, you know, 3 or 4 years, that I got something that's horrible. No, it wasn't that. It was just that if I was going to have to do so much work on a blade, I would rather it be one eye.
Yeah, because then you have the full control over it. And like, if you're already expecting this pattern of like, all right, this is going to come in, I'm going to have to work on it.
Right.
I might as well just work on it completely, and then just from the scratch of it and everything. So no, I thought that was really clear in that as far as that goes. I want to switch gears a little bit, if you're cool with that. Kind of a simple question, but I mean, I don't get to ask people a lot of this a whole lot, me coming from more of like a Filipino blade background, a different forge than what you're talking about. But again, we're not bad mouthing that, but just tease it a little bit. But why medieval swords? What gravitates you toward that? And then elaborate on whatever you want as far as, you know, what you want to cover.
Well, when I had my cutlery stores, we sold a lot of katanas. I would buy the CAS and Paul Chen katanas, and then I think there was legendary. I don't even remember what they were called. There was another company out there that was making katanas, and you know, we would buy the Valiant Armory brand. and some of the Hanwei stuff, they made some medieval swords. But as you look through it, I found there were, I don't know, just a difference to me personally on a more personal level. I just think I like the mystique of the medieval better than the Japanese style swords, the katanas. I know a lot of people for a period there really got into katana because of, I guess, different movies. And I'm thinking of this as in, you know, the typical mall customer coming in, I want to see this, watching reactions. And as a kid, I'd watched Excalibur, and I'd read so many books where the sword style was clearly, to me, at least the way I visualized the sword, was a medieval style sword. And to me, there was so much more appealing. I don't even know how to describe it. I just think that if I immersed myself into that fictional world or whatever, I just visualized I would be carrying a medieval sword.
Yeah.
And, you know, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I guess I just was more drawn to that type of blade and characteristic. And I guess the one of the main sites that I spent a lot of time on was my armory when I was doing my early research. That was also more of a medieval sword site. And, so, you know, I'd mentioned earlier my original contacts with Christian and Gus. It just kind of fit. It's like it all fell into a mold. I enjoy creating the different packages, the different swords we make. It's probably one of the most pleasurable things that I do in my day-to-day work, is designing and finding the right weight, balance, proportions for individual blades. And it's something that I really enjoy. I think if I was making another type, it would be just more of a job.
Yeah.
You know, it would be like work. And, you know, I work 7 days a week, but I don't feel like I'm trudging through life. You know,
It's work, but it's not a job.
Right. I mean, it's hard work.
Of course.
I mean,
y'all are doing
nobody ever goes into the sword making business and says to themselves, I'm going to do this because I want to get rich. No one gets rich.
Yeah.
I make a decent living. I am not something that I'm planning on retiring at an early age doing.
Right.
It's something I'll probably do until I drop dead. But it's fun. The work and the effort involved is kind of relaxing in a weird way.
Sure.
I mean, our fullers on the blades, I hand sand every one of them. Every stinking one of them.
Wow.
Zach does other stuff. I mean, we kind of, it was never really spoken or decided ahead of time. It just kind of happened naturally, where I had specific jobs and he had specific jobs. And then there are other jobs that we both did. But somehow I got the hand sanding of Fuller's job.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a lot of work. You'll break a sweat, believe me, doing it, but it's something I enjoy. And so the whole process of making medieval swords is appealing. So
Yeah.
I guess that.